Morning, grade 10s. So this video is going to help you go through step 3 of your final culminating assignment, where you're going to be actually planning what you're going to be doing in your experiment. So now that we've picked our category and we've done some research, we've become an expert, we've made our hypothesis, it's time to actually plan and execute this experiment. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is gather up and determine what types of materials or what equipment are you going to need to perform your experiment. So the safest way to do this is to check in with an adult, parent or guardian that may be home with you, to make sure you have all the stuff you need. Again, you shouldn't be designing an experiment that requires you to go out to the store and purchase a bunch of new items. That's not what we would like you to do right now during time of social distancing. What we would prefer you to do is try to design or find alternatives within your house, materials that you already have on hand, okay? First thing that you need to do after you've planned out your experiment is record all of the things that you're going to need, very similar to if you've ever cooked or followed a recipe before. At the top of the recipe, there's always a list of all of the things that you're going to need, okay? So I don't get halfway through baking my cake and realize, oh shoot, I don't have vegetable oil. I can read that list beforehand. Same way here with an experiment. This is so people can read that list beforehand before they start the experiment to make sure they have everything that they need to be able to replicate what you did. Okay? So the first thing after you've planned your experiment is in this materials list, and this may not be enough, this may be too many, depends on the experiment that you're designing. You're going to fill out all of the things that you're going to need. So do you need water? Do you need sand? Do you need different brands of soda? Do you need paper towel? Do you need a measuring cup? Do you need a teaspoon? Any of the stuff that you are going to need to perform that experiment, put that in that list. Okay? The next thing that you're going to do is the same thing that you would see in a recipe. After you have the list of all the ingredients you need, they tell you how to perform or create the recipe, okay? So in a recipe, it may start off with preheat the oven to 350 degrees. But you're going to do the same thing here, but you're going to be recording steps so that someone could repeat the experiment that you're doing, okay? So this is called the procedure. So it's the steps that you're going to follow when you're performing your experiment. We write this for the same reason we write down things in recipes. This is so someone can replicate or repeat your experiment and see if they get the same results you did. So scientists do this so people will believe that they did the experiment, and also so that other people can test out the experiment as well. So 5 steps may not be enough. Likely you're probably going to have more than 5 steps to perform your experiment, but you're going to write down what your procedure is. Okay, so how are you going to start? What's the first thing you're going to do? Second thing you're going to do? Third thing you're going to do? Okay, just like you would in a recipe. The last thing in our planning process is to identify our variables. So this would include our controlled, our independent, and our responding variables. Remember that when you're testing your experiment, you should only be testing or changing one variable at a time. Okay, so the conditions that you're going to keep the same across all of your experiments are going to be called your controlled variables. These are really important to keep the same because you want to make sure you're only testing one thing at a time. So for example, let's say I want to test, I have 3 brands of paper towel at my house and I know they all cost a different amount of money. I want to see which paper towel is actually the best. The only thing that I want it different between each of my steps or each of my different tests is the brand of paper towel. Now, it wouldn't be fair if I used 2 pieces of one paper towel and only 1 piece of the second brand of paper towel and say, oh, the first brand absorbs so much more water. Well, it maybe absorbed more water because you used way more paper towel, okay? So you want everything other than just one specific thing about your tests to be the same. Same thing, if I'm testing, does adding soda to my plants help it grow better or worse? If I put water in one plant, Coke in one plant, and Sprite in another plant, but I put the plant that I've watered under my sink where it's dark and it has no sunlight, maybe it's not growing, not because water is bad for your plant, but because you've put it in a place with no sun. It would be really important that those plants all have the same amount of sun and the same temperature, and everything else about the plants are exactly the same. Okay? So those are called your controlled variables. The only variable that you want to change is called your independent or your manipulated variable. This is the factor that you're actually testing. So the brand of paper towel, the liquid you're adding to the plant, those are the things that you're actually changing. What you measure in response to actually determine what worked the best and what worked the worst is going to be called your dependent or your responding variables. So this is what's actually going to change as a result of your test. So for example, like I said, if I was testing adding different sodas on plant growth, my variables would be, controlled variables would be things like the amount of sunlight, the amount of liquid added, the type of soil, the temperature of the plant. All of those things that also could affect growth, I want to make sure are exactly the same. Okay. My independent variable, what I'm changing is going to be the type of soda added. So am I adding Coke, Sprite, root beer? What am I adding? Okay. That's what I'm actually changing or testing. And my dependent variable, what I'm measuring in response, is going to be my plant growth. Okay, so maybe I take a ruler and I measure every day how tall the plants grow. Okay. So you, just like me, are going to have to identify your controlled, your independent, and your dependent variables. Okay. You should have multiple controlled variables. You should have one independent and dependent variable. Okay, so for step 3, you're going to be submitting to me, and take a look. Make sure you've checked your due date down in the description box or on the calendar posted on Classroom, what your materials are, what your procedure is, and you've identified your variables. In terms of marking for step 3, if we look, you're going to get marked on a level. So level 1, 2, 3, 4, your materials list. So are you missing anything? How complete is your list? Same thing, your procedure is going to be marked on a level system. So is it something that I could replicate? Is it written clearly? Is it a good procedure? Are you missing any steps? You're going to get a mark for your independent and your responding variables. Okay, there should be one of each, so you should get 1 mark for each. And your controlled variables are also going to be marked on a level to see if you've thought through all of the things that you need to control for your plant or for your experiment. Okay, so step 3, these are the marks that are up for grabs for you during step 3. Okay. If you have any questions, reach out to your teacher. Again, make sure you've checked your due date for step 3, either in the description or in the calendar posted on Google Classroom. And hopefully you're all staying safe, staying home, and staying healthy. Talk to you soon.